Okay, so let's get you started with Wireshark. Our first lab, we're going to download and install Wireshark. And you may be thinking, how difficult is it to download and install an app? Well, in this demo, I'm just going to take you slowly through the different installation options to help you make the right decisions when you're installing Wireshark. In this demo, we're going to be installing it in a Windows operating system environment. And I will be talking about WinPcap, the Windows driver that captures packets and passes them up to Wireshark. And I'll also be talking about USBPCap, which is a sniffer on your USB ports. The first thing we want to do is to download the Wireshark application. And to do that, we should go to the official Wireshark website, www.wireshark.org. And here you can see it says I can download a stable release, which is what we want to do. You could also download the legacy release if you have a need to. So under Stable Releases 2.0, you can see a variety of installers for different operating systems. Now in this demo we're doing Windows, so I'm going to click on the Windows installer 64-bit. If you have an older computer that needs the 32-bit, then you should click the 32-bit installer. So I always like to save my applications and then run them versus just run them. So I'm going to select Save As, and then I'm going to download them in my Downloads folder. Once we've downloaded the Wireshark installer, we can simply click on it. This will then start the Wireshark 2.0 wizard. Click Next. Now, Wireshark is an open source piece of software, and you can download it and you don't need to pay a license fee. And it's not a demo version with any limitations, it's a fully featured application, but it is licensed under the GNU General Public License. And this imposes some conditions if you want to use Wireshark and embed the code inside products. It also discusses whether when you make changes to Wireshark source, then you'll make that available to everybody else. And so read through these license agreements, and if you agree, then you would click I agree. Of course, if you don't agree, then you won't be able to install the Wireshark application. You're then being asked what components do you want to install. Now again, that varies on what kind of installation you want to have. I would recommend that you install all of them except Wireshark 1. I don't want to deploy the legacy Wireshark, but if you have a need for that, you should go ahead and check that box. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and say Next. Now it's asking me to select additional tasks. Now if you're a heavy user of Wireshark, you might want to go ahead and put that as a desktop icon in addition to these other shortcuts. Go ahead and select Next. Next is asking me to select a destination directory to put Wireshark in, and I would recommend that you use the default location. If you are using a Windows operating system, then you need to have WinPcap installed. WinPcap is the Windows version of the libpcap library, and that library includes a driver that is used to actually capture the network traffic. If you do not install it and have it running while you're running Wireshark, you will not be able to capture live traffic. If you do not have WinPcap installed, you should go ahead and check that box. Most of you will probably already have WinPcap installed, and so you will not need to check that box. Even though I have WinPcap installed, I'm going to click this button so I can show you the installation. Now it's asking if I want to install the USBPCap. USBPCap is a sniffer that lets you sniff the USB ports on your computer, which is really cool. But if you don't have a need to sniff the USB ports, these are the things that would connect your mouse, your keyboard, memory sticks, etc. If you don't have a need to sniff those, then you don't need to do this installation. I do want to warn you that if you do install the USB PCAPs, it will require you to reboot your computer after you've finished the Wireshark installation. And now I have my pop-up to verify that I do indeed want to install WinPcap, because I do have it already installed. So it's asking me if I want to force the installation. So I'm going to click OK. and then routed to the WinPcap setup wizard. Click Next. The WinPcap license agreement will discuss things like redistribution and use of the WinPcap source and binary code. Read the license agreement, and if you agree, click OK. Now this is actually very important. This is asking whether you want to start WinPcap driver at boot time. And I recommend that you check this option. If you don't want to run it at boot time, what I want to warn you is that if you don't have WinPcap running and you run the Wireshark application, you won't be able to capture any live data. So I always recommend that you do start it at startup time, because otherwise you're going to set up Wireshark and you're going to forget, and you're going to be troubleshooting, well, why can't I capture any data with my Wireshark application? So again, if you're in a Windows environment, you do need WinPcap to be running when you're running Wireshark. And it's very quick, and I click Finish. Now we're being asked to agree to the GNU General Public License for the USBPCap drivers. Again, it's open source, and this discusses what you can do with that source software. If you agree, you click the I accept button and hit Next. Then you're being asked to sign the USBPCap command license, which again discusses use of the source and binary forms. Again, always read these licensing agreements, and if you agree, click the check button and then click Next. Finally, you're given a choice of the components that you want to install. I recommend that you do a full install. Now it asks you for the destination folder that you want to deploy the USBPCap sniffer into. Recommend, as always, that you keep with the default location. Click Install, and the installation is complete. Press Close, and then the installation of Wireshark will continue. Once the installation is complete, you hit Next. Installing the USBPCap driver does require a reboot. You can decide whether you want to reboot now or reboot later. Once you've decided, then you can hit the Finish button, and that completes the installation of Wireshark in a Windows environment.